city park here, and you were there with your daughter. And your daughter was, I think, a late teenager at the time. I remember you being there, and I remember you telling me the stories about the time when you lived in South Africa with your children and what was going on there. I remember that, and I remember you talking very openly about considering suicide and death, and I was really, really attracted to what you were saying, because that's the way it is for me too. So yeah, that you showed up here now at this time is, I mean, I have trouble with the God thing, whatever, especially the traditional view. So I like to go to children's magic. So it's pixie dust type thing. Right now, right here, it's like, wow. So that you're here today to speak to a new 12-step meeting, it's so impressive. It's so impressive that you're here to speak. So I'd love to hear what you have to share in this speaker meeting. Thanks for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for being so welcoming and for creating this. I have a lot of respect for 12 steps, having worked with them in my codependency addiction. Starting about 30 years ago or something, and that you're taking a stand to describe this rampant human addiction to all kinds of different human created technologies that cost the earth, and our addiction to using them is remarkable to me, especially given that we're here in Calgary, where the oil and gas industry is something that people cling to because it is their source of income, and income equals survival for most adult humans, even though I, in my own research, have shown that there's a very low level of money income actually required to live, and that the cost of shelter, transportation, food can be super minimized, especially when other activities and other ways of living that are about generating collaboration and generating small kind of tribal groups works. Like it creates such a satisfying way of living, to be deeply connected with other humans, the land, the flora and fauna of this geographical location that one could choose to limit oneself to, in order to create a way of living that hasn't been seen yet. And when I say hasn't been seen, I mean no disrespect at all to indigenous cultures and tribes. What hasn't been seen is a conscious choice to choose to live in what I would call a Gaian way. And when there's a choice to live in an anti-Gaian, a destructive to Gaian way, and the indigenous didn't have that choice. They didn't have, oh, I could drive my car, or I could own a car, or I could, do these things. It was almost like they had this competence that was delivered by Gaia, that then became seemingly inaccessible to humans now. And I hear so many people say, well, we can't go back. We can't go back to living without central heating or vehicles or machines or computers. And I think, where's your evidence about that? And I personally know people who have unplugged from the modern culture, colonial, quote unquote, civilized, productivity, money-driven capitalist empire culture, and they have very little left that's plugged in. And in my opinion, these people are living extraordinary lives. They are living lives that they would become the legendary figures of 7 generations from now if humanity is able to still exist on the planet in 7 generations, which I don't personally bother making predictions about. I'm too interested in being one of those people who 7 generations from now are mentioned because of the stand that I took and the work that I did to show how it can be done, to unplug. And I make this action, like there's this outward unplugging from corporate standards, unplugging from power dynamic based organizations and systems so that I'm not giving my life energy to them. There's also, I've discovered, and this is what is especially interesting to me, is ways of unplugging, like removing from myself the ways that I perpetuate and keep alive, especially these power dynamics of superiority, inferiority, right, wrong, good, bad, win, lose, and rather shift myself into bringing through principles of love and clarity and possibility and transformation and winning happening and collaboration, because this is what I think it takes. And even if I'm wrong about that, even if me doing all this doesn't create the consequences I anticipate it will create, I still choose it because it's fun for me. And I have 4 children to hopefully be gathered around me when it's time for me to leave my body and leave this earth. And I want to be able to look them in the eye and have them say, Mom, we're so grateful for all you did so that we had the best chance possible of having a viable planet where we're not really like doomed because the food supply can't happen, because the pollinators aren't here. The water is undrinkable because it's been so polluted by the wastes of human activity, where the air is not breathable because, and this is where human created technologies are going, and this interest still that remains in more AI and more machines and more fuel sources that are created when we actually like destroy matter. It blows my mind that there's such a widespread inability to see the miracle that is this planet, that as far as any scientist I've ever heard talk have said that there are a few planets that we've found that are really, really far away that might support life. And I'm like, well, we know damn sure that this one does.
Yeah, that's right.
And look at it, like it kind of blows my mind that there are things like rainbows. Like if you think about it, sunlight and water mist, rain, create this phenomenon that will fill the sky that everyone wants to look at, except that people are just like, it's a rainbow. Like, I'm like, are you sure that's how you want to live?
Yeah.
Shut off from the wonder and awe of the beautiful majesty of what happens after a storm.
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure that's how you want to live? I'm not saying it's wrong or bad to live cut off from that stuff. I'm saying it's not how I want to live. And I'm not saying that I think other people should live like me. I'm just saying that consequences of missing out on that are that you don't really care what happens with the climate, with the weather. You don't really care what happens with the air, with even that a person would have a life in which they know they can stop and look and just stand there in awe, because they're not so driven from inside to survive against, as if the odds are in this short-term survival, when really it's a long game and it's a finite game, and we're playing it every minute of every day. I am playing a finite game, and you are each also. Mm-hmm. And it I guess some people only count it to when they die. And when, having 4 children, I maybe this extended my view, but I also somehow have this longing for the human experience on planet Earth to get to be experienced as much as possible. And there are some people who have argued with me, well, the planet's going to die at some point. Might as well, have our fun in our ATV vehicles, and like I would have shot a buffalo if they'd been around when I was. And I'm like, okay.
Jeez.
I guess I'm going to take my energy and attention somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's not, and I admit, I feel all kinds of intense feelings, all kinds of rage, all kinds of grief, all kinds of fear that could be paralyzing and has been paralyzing and is sometimes still paralyzing for me. And what I've really been using as new resources in order to empower my anger to come out as clarity, come out as questions, come out as choices, come out as saying, wait, no, I am taking a stand here, and I am guarding this space right now, whatever it is, in the name of Gaia, in the name of generations to come. And what I've discovered is that in order to be effective about that, in order to be more effective than I have been about that, what I've discovered is that I need to bring parts of me online that really nobody ever talked to me about. When I was a kid, I was talked to about my physical body, I was talked about my behavior, my mind. I had to know things, I had to learn things, and I had this soul or this spirit that hopefully would go to heaven when I died. Having that framework created certain consequences for my life. I didn't want those consequences anymore, so I started looking around for possibilities about how else to relate to whatever it is I am. And I started to relate to myself as having a physical body that's made of bones and tissues and blood and synapses and nerves and things, and to having an emotional body that's made of feelings, anger, sadness, fear, and joy. And that in my emotional body, sometimes those feelings mix together, and sometimes they get stuck, and sometimes they're free-flowing, and they're resources for me. And what I discovered was that there are feelings that are from the past and about the past that didn't get completed in my system, because when I was younger, I didn't have anyone who could sit there and say, I see you're feeling sadness because, and I didn't get to say, I feel sad because the kids at school left me out again. And I didn't have someone to say, oh, you feel sad because the kids at school left you out again. Yeah, and I feel mad because they left me. They don't let me play. Yeah, you feel mad because they, and didn't just complete the communications and hold space for me and be with me. Instead, And I don't blame them because they didn't know any better. But what I learned to do as a mother partly is to do that. And what I often still did, because it was so, again, deeply ingrained in my system, and I hadn't unplugged it as much as I have by now, I said things like, well, what did you do? And, well, what do you expect? Of course they're going to leave you out when you're like that. And then I had experiences of being wrong and being bad and being, and then I started to use my fear that I would hear those kinds of things again to stop me from talking to my parents, to my teachers. And I started to contract myself tighter and tighter around this inner something, this source of aliveness, this source of creativity, this source of clarity, this source of audacious aliveness. And I started to hem myself in. And I did that because that's just what I chose to do, believing that I had to survive. And I was probably in some cases accurate. That, you know, if I was screaming and yelling and pissed off because I was being told I had to go to bed when I wasn't tired, I'm guessing there were times that my mother might have been so angry about not being able to control me because she didn't have space holding skills. She hadn't had them demonstrated to her, and she didn't know how to say, you're really mad because I want you to go in your bed and you don't want to go in your bed. And I was like, yeah. She couldn't do that. Instead, what she may have done on occasion is she may have shaken me. And, you know, as a parent, I learned this shaken baby syndrome. Don't shake your baby. No matter how mad you get, don't shake your baby. You could kill it.
Yeah.
You could severely damage it. And I think that by that little being I was choosing to shut the fuck up and not challenge my mom so much, I may have well saved my own life. And I don't think that she's the kind of person who you know, and yet I've heard many stories of many beautiful, wonderful, well-meaning people who couldn't take it anymore and did something that was criminal and were found criminally responsible and imprisoned. And in fact, I became fascinated by people like that as a child. I became fascinated by people who were imprisoned in the most dire circumstances. People like Viktor Frankl, who was in the Holocaust, and Anne Frank also, who was in hiding during the Holocaust, and then did die in a concentration camp. Their ability to be, in a way, free, despite being imprisoned. And even in Viktor Frankl's case, being able to look at the guards who were towing the line and keeping these boundaries in place and have compassion for them, because he recognized that they were imprisoned. They were imprisoned by a doctrine and this belief that they had to do these inhumane things to survive themselves. This inspired me to no end, and I'm so grateful for those people who have been legendary to me, who I can say, I'm glad you existed. And though I wouldn't wish your circumstances on anyone, I'm so glad that you brought the gold of what you discovered as you took responsibility to be the person who would be the source of your aliveness, despite anything else happening. I was not this kind of person for most of my life, and I'm still failing miserably often. And yet I really want to bring this possibility forward, and I'm so grateful to you for listening and for creating these kinds of spaces where I can really get on these 12 steps in regard to my addiction to these human technologies, and one by one just empower myself to put them down, to stop using them. And I think that when I think of what I already do, I can't help but celebrate. I can't help but feel some joy and satisfaction that I'm like, wow, I'm actually showing that this can be done, and this can be done, and this can be done. And I'm interested to hear more examples from other people. And it's been a shift for me, because when I was younger and I heard what people, I will say, ahead of me were doing, I was embarrassed that I wasn't doing more already. In fact, I would sometimes really disdain the people and be like, you know what, you are coming off as a crazy, obsessed person. And now I'm a little bit more of a crazy, obsessed person, wondering what more can I do to create the consequence that there is more clean water for generations to come, I'm probably not the person to take this on, but there are dead coral reefs filling the ocean. They're spreading. I heard recently that a critical mass of plastic had actually been removed from the ocean. That was like, you know, it's like they kind of hit this point where it's like, okay, we turned it around, you know.
Really?
We took so much out that what got added this year is like, it's, you know, it's something more even.
Wow.
And I dream of what might be possible if children, grown-ups, teenagers, everywhere just got really into the game of, you know, what other results can I create besides these life-killing results? How can I create results that are about, like, helping a species flourish, helping an ecosystem flourish, helping humans? Like, this is my personal area that I'm super interested about. How can I bring distinctions and tools and maps and processes to groups of people so that they can be less at war with each other, so that they can be less at war with the different parts of themselves, that they are kind of consumed with justifying internally and then trying to be so good and so right, and so having these wars, these micro wars break out, so that maybe the bigger wars don't have to happen. Maybe this conflict can be absorbed, and the emotions and the feelings can be completed as we go, rather than them storing up and then leading to these attacks that happen when so much energetic emotion is built and built and built that I can't be numb about it anymore. I can't pretend anymore that I can handle it. And then I use it to handle my life instead of using it for what I have discovered it can be used for, which is to have a healing process. So I've learned to notice when a feeling I'm having is actually an emotion about the past. I'm not even present with the people that are here. I am acting and saying things as if it's my dad or my mom or my 7th grade teacher or a bully on the playground, and I'm relating to someone as if this is what's happening, and it's not. It's not. I'm really missing being with the person, and I'm really missing creating with the person, because I'm using my emotions to handle my life. So I started to learn to use my emotions for healing, to ask for spaces where I can go and where a skilled space holder, a trained space holder can complete all of those emotions. Yeah, it's, 40 years later or 50 years later, and it's not too late. I can resolve that stuff. I can process it. I can complete it. I can come out with new clarity, new capacity to choose, new capacity to apply myself consciously, to take responsibility, to create collaboration in the here and now. And then I'm handling my life with my feelings. As I feel anger, sadness, fear, and joy, they're like this amazing fuel and information for setting a boundary, taking a stand, asking a question, for checking about something, for connecting with someone, for grieving maybe, and holding space for someone else to grieve. There's so many
awesome.
human activities that become possible when I'm using my feelings to handle things rather than my emotions to survive, to fight, to be right, to prove that I'm not wrong, to prove someone else is wrong, to prove someone else is right, to just engage in these like low drama, spinning shows that are not living. They're just time passing, and everyone gets older and nothing changes. And so yeah, what I want to bring is this possibility of shifting into these high drama ways of being together, collaboratively creating, playing a different game, playing the winning happening game, and then sharing the discoveries with as many other people as possible so that they can discover what else might be possible for them, so that they could also join in this high level fun, high drama, winning happening game, and that human beings could, like, one by one, and then maybe as a collective, just start over, start collectively a new era on Earth where we as Gaia, because we are Gaia, every cell in our body is part of this planet. Every drop of water is contained. It's like, this is it. The only thing that comes in from outside of the atmosphere of Gaia is sunlight and heat from the sun. And you know, when people say, oh, we need energy, I'm like, we have a nuclear reactor in the sky. It goes for 12 hours pretty much everywhere. And then we get a break from it, which is really great, actually, if you think about it. We can harness this heat and harness this light in ways that don't cost the earth, because we really don't need that much. We've really made a whole bunch of stuff that we could be using for a long, long time while we figure out how to do it in a Gaian way, more like indigenous cultures probably, but choosing it and keeping the legends alive of how humanity, changed course from being lemmings that are headed for the cliff of essential suicide to being like, wait, is that what we want? No. We're gonna choose for us. We're not gonna let our old standard human thoughtware, intelligence thoughtware choose for us, tricking us into, I have to have an SUV to survive. I have to have a central heating fueled house built unsustainably to survive. It's like, this isn't accurate. All you really need to survive is a very small little domicile. You can probably heat with a local deadfall. If we're being with our forests in the way that works, if we spread out, if we collaborate, there's so much fun to be had. And I love that so many people are learning how to make fire with flint and steel, or even bow drills. It's like, it's so fun to learn to make fire with a bow drill while it's not Armageddoning out, which it's not quite yet, maybe. I mean, it depends. Your version of Armageddon, I personally think it's Armageddoning out, but it's not imminent. It's not like, I got to figure out how to build a fire right now, or I probably will die overnight. We don't have that problem yet.
It's true.
I want to be able to build that fire so that when that day does come, I know how to build it.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to figure it out on the fly. And there's way more skills, because this whole, like, you know about technophobia, right? The fear of technology. So many older people get called technophobes. Oh, you're scared of new technology. You don't know how to program your VCR or whatever. Well, there's this other thing that a friend of mine, Clinton, calls technopenuriophobia, which is the fear of being without technology. Because humans have relied on these technologies that we've developed that separate us from nature. We've relied on them for so long that we actually have embedded, probably even in our DNA, the fear of being without them. If we can heal that fear, that emotional fear handed down from generations, and use it to learn how to handle ourselves in the Gaian wilderness, then maybe we can recreate the Gaian wilderness so that it can be thriving and not be being killed off patch by patch by patch. And that's what I was here to say.
Thanks, Nicole.